There you go. All right. Well, this is very exciting, Philippa.
Thank you.
So nice to see you again.
Yes, I think we've done this before.
We have done this before. Seen by everybody. I've already seen it. I think it's so beautiful. I was moved to be back in your Rohan, and it's so familiar. It's so cohesive. It's so true to the legendarium, in my opinion. It just feels so integrated into Tolkien's world. But it's the first time that Tolkien and anime have come together. There's so much to talk about. Number one, let's go to you, Philippa. The story of Helm is in the appendices.
Yes.
And as I said to you, I was amazed how much those few pages offered you in terms of a narrative. You expand on it beautifully, the team expands on it beautifully, but the core of the story, the spine, is all there in the appendices. What was it about this story that made you think it should be a feature-length film?
You know what happened first was they came to us, Sam Register, who is head of Warner's Animation, had suggested anime. We'd been looking at other forms of, dipping our toe back into the water of going back to Middle Earth. And when they suggested, they came to us and said, what about anime? This story sprang to mind immediately. And I think it was a number of things. I think it was, I had this gut feeling that somehow the Rohirrim would work in that world of anime and within the great tradition of Japanese filmmaking, the nested themes of loyalty, honor, but underneath that always that current of no one is truly good, no one is completely evil. It's all about the choices that you choose to make, which is such a central theme, as you know, to Tolkien. And so all of that felt like, okay, that's going to fit. And then I very casually disregarded the fact that there's hundreds and hundreds of horses involved in this. And that became a them problem, which they'll talk about, I'm sure.
I assume the walking cycle for animating a horse is twice as hard because there's twice as many legs.
Yeah. No, the very first time we were on Zoom, and I was so overexcited, as I get, as you know, and I was going, I can just see it like them charging, like thousands of horses charging, and they both stopped and went, sorry, how many horses? But they didn't flinch. I have to tell you, these guys never flinched because, it is hard to go back there. In terms of, yes, you're 100% right. It is all there. I think we have tried to be faithful. We never change anything lightly, just so you know. And when we add, we try to draw from sources that feel authentic to the world. I'll leave that up to the writers to talk about. But he is never not a gift to go back into that incredible imagination of Professor Tolkien. And we had the precedents of those who had gone before. We had the brilliant Miranda Otto. Did anyone get chills hearing her voice? And who returned as Eowyn. So, I don't know, it's one of those things, when things start to come together and feel right, everyone feels it, and that's what happened here.
Well, let's move on to, speaking of anime, let's go to our director, Kenji Kamiyama. Kamiyama-san, what do you love about this story? What drew you to it? And why do you think anime is an art form that supports telling this story?
まず最初に惹かれたのはヘルムの生き方というかですねですけども彼女の目を通してそのヘルムのがどう生きたかっていうですねそこを描いていくっていうところにすごく惹かれました。
I got most of that.
Yeah, you got that, right? Yeah. For your benefit. The reason was that I think I'll speak in first person. What he said was I felt that a Helm Hammerhand story it's a very tragic Shakespearean type of story where a legendary figure causes a chain of events that faces basically the end of his bloodline, and what caused all of that. I mean, there's a story in there for a movie. So that was something that he felt was very interesting to explore, because there isn't so much in there in terms of story. So there's a room to also to kind of explore how that happened. But basically there's a guideline of what happened. The events, like facts are there, but how did it happen? And that was something interesting to him. And also the character that we created together called Hera. It's a great character. Through her eyes, she carries the entire film and brings the story to an end. But she's the one who's observing all these things happening, experiencing and going on this journey together with all the characters that are in the text. And so, it was a very nice little blank that was given by Tolkien for him to actually explore because it was nameless. Also, it was easier for him to go in, with Philippa to try to craft that story as an observer and the person who experiences everything, and as a hero. So those two are what drew him to the story the most.
Great. Let's talk to the writers, Artie and Phoebe. I was happy to see how canonical this all feels, and I have no problem with expanding these stories. As I said earlier, the spine of the action is all there in the Tolkien text. Can you talk us through some of the choices that you made to expand and fill out the stories, specifically the development of Hera, the daughter, who is integral to the tale, but not named in the original text?
Yeah, sort of the why Hera of it all. I think Philippa had the initial idea to use the unnamed daughter as a central character, and when Artie and I approached the script, we could see immediately it was a really good idea, because when you look at the text, we know the fate of Helm Hammerhand, and it's epic, it's iconic, and it's some of my favorite imagery in the film, but it's not an ending to this story, not when you have the Rohirrim still besieged behind the walls of the Hornburg. So then, who then can see this story through for us? And we know the fates of Haleth and Hama, and we know Freyalaf has a significant role to play in this, but there is one other. And Tolkien, he didn't name her, but he did put her at the heart of this conflict. This war, in large part, is about her. And so once we kind of got our heads around that, it was really exciting to be able to see what, we could bring to the table in helping to shape this character. Yeah. Anything to add? Just babbling on.
I think you nailed it.
Oh, thanks.
Okay, good. I want to go back to Kamiyama-san. I was curious about what is it about Tolkien and the world that he created that resonates to a Japanese storyteller? What is familiar about Tolkien to someone who is so familiar with Japanese storytelling and Japanese legend?
この映画をやるにあたって再び読み返して思ったんですけれども、トールキンは彼が指輪物語を書いていた頃はまだそのファンタジーっていうジャンルがちょっと子供っぽいものだと思われていた時代だったんじゃないかなと思うんですね。ですけど、彼は言語学者でもあるのでファンタジーっていうジャンルを大人が読むに耐える、鑑賞に耐えるジャンルにしていったと思うんですけれども、その際にやっぱりファンタジーの魅力って世界観を作っていくところだと思うんですけれども、そこをすごく楽しんで作ってたんじゃないかなっていうのを改めて感じたんですね。でだからこそすごく映像化していくことに対しての親和性みたいなものが彼の文章の中にはあるなというふうに感じました。
So I think when Tolkien first created, this work, I mean, he continued to update it, but when he first came out with this kind of story, perhaps these kinds of fantasy stories were taken as sort of like a fairy tale for younger children. But how when he came up with the story, it seemed to have revolutionized the fantasy storytelling as something mature that mature audiences and readers can really appreciate. And so it not only really changed the genre of fantasy and kind of set the template for everyone else, including some of the Western fantasy like anime or manga done in Japan. I mean, the template has been set by Tolkien, and that's the template everybody follows. But not only that, as someone who creates a lot of original works, what's interesting about the genre of fantasy or science fiction is that you're basically dealing with something that didn't exist or doesn't exist yet. And the fun of it is actually trying to create details of the world. Like you're basically building up the universe, and then that you need to build detail in each detail and background stories, and you got to build it all up. But there's no one like Tolkien who basically creates languages and geography and just a world that you can believe in, that you feel like you could live and breathe in. And as a storyteller, that was very it makes it very easy for example, like to visualize it too, just because there's so much information in there. So as he was making it, he like started feeling about, this is what he was thinking, and like there's that setting. Oh, there's already a background story on this. So that type of like intricate layers, that exists in the works. It's wonderful it's a wonderful fodder to visualize, and it almost welcomes it. So he really loves it. Yeah.
Joseph, as some of the locations in this film are featured in the original Lord of the Rings trilogy, Meadowseld and of course Helm's Deep itself, did you go back to the original concept art? Did you go to the original film? What was the inspiration for that design?
I think one of the amazing things actually that we were able to do when taking on these films, because when we started out this project, the premise is that we were gonna be in the Peter Jackson universe that he adapted. Peter Jackson adapted universe, the trilogy of films, Hobbit. So we will be in that family. So that basically meant Philippa opened that door to the Weta, and Peter also got in and gave us a lot of comments. Fran, everybody really came in and gave us full access to everything. And I think when we first started out, so basically we had access to all the repository at Weta. So initially you kind of go in there like a kid in the toy shop. You're just like, really? Really? I can look at that too? But I mean, literally no doors were closed to us. And so all those reference points, and then also a lot of the architecture and designs, down to the tapestry, in a throne room. I mean, we would get access to it, and also we would get access to people who made it. So all the filmmakers, not just design actually, the sound, the music, we were given a full access to everybody who worked on those films, and to collaborate together in that. So design-wise, we had that, but we also, for designs that didn't exist, that we got to work with, Alan Lee, the great Alan Lee, and John Howe, who worked on the original films, to create the new designs, and just having them collaborate with the artists that we had in Japan, that basically had contributed to the work that ended up on screen. And so it's I don't think this film was possible without that kind of an access and openness, on the filmmaker side, and it's one of those things. It's a dream come true. Yeah.
So I know we're tight for time because we want to get the actors out here. But very quickly, Jason, just to very quickly set this story. Where does this story, how does it relate to the original Lord of the Rings trilogy?
So this story takes place almost 200 years before the events of The Hobbit. So where we are now is Rohan has for years been dealing with Dunlendings, who are the native people who kind of were displaced by the Rohirrim, who have been making incursions into Rohan and trying to sort of gain more territory. It's been a period of sort of quiet because Helm Hammerhand has kind of settled everything. That's kind of how he's gotten his reputation. And when we come into this story, Freka, who's a Dunlending lord with Rohirric blood, who kind of fancies himself a little bit more than he is, comes to Helm with a very impertinent sort of marriage proposal to have his son Wolf marry Helm's daughter, which Helm takes great offense to. And then that leads to a chain of disastrous decisions which cause the war.
The most disastrous decision being he decided to have a fist fight with a guy whose name is Hammerhand.
He had a fight with One
smart,
Punch
Frecka.
Man. Yeah, he had a fight with One Punch Man and lost.
All right, now let's meet the voices behind the heroic father-daughter team and their nemesis. Please welcome to the panel Luke Pasqualino. Come on out, Luke. Gaia Wise. Come on out, Gaia. Hello, Luke. And the great Brian Cox, everybody. There you go. Please. All right, here we go. Here we go. This is exciting. Okay, let's see. For those of you, but actually before I begin, I should tell you, if any of you have any questions, before I get to my questions, please line up at the microphone. Can anybody point out where the microphone is? Microphone's right over there. Line up at the microphone, and we'll call on you shortly after we talk to the actors. Okay, Luke, Gaia, and Brian, for those who haven't closely scrutinized the appendices, can you each tell us a little bit, just a little bit about your character? Brian.
Yeah. Well, he's called Hammerhands.
Gaia.
I am the daughter, the only daughter of said Hammerhand. He lovingly refers to me as his tearaway child, which I think is a fantastic description. And yeah, she's tenacious. She's what I would call a horse girl, probably. And
I hope so.
Yeah, one would hope. And yeah, she's got this fantastic soul that sort of carries her throughout this film, even in the face of great adversity.
Luke.
I play Wolf, who is the son of Frecka, childhood friend of Hera, who, after a family tragedy, seeks to bring down the Hammerhand household.
All right, Brian, let's get back into Helm here for a second. All right, we've already learned a lot. We've already learned a lot from you about Helm.
Okay.
Well, let's talk about the relationship. Helm and Hera, is that father-daughter or king and subject?
Oh, no, father-daughter. Definitely father-daughter. I mean, I think it's the one light in his life is his daughter. And so his daughter is very close to him. I mean, I think it's also important to remind people that Helm is an elected king. He doesn't come through any kind of divine right of kings. He's an elected king. He was probably a warrior for a long time before he became a king. And this is the very special part of his life. So in a way, that is his kind of raison d'etre, really, for trying to keep everything together. And the idea that he's going to marry her to this Frecka, this horrific individual, is totally against his being, you know.
Well, Gaia, Hera is a character that the fans wouldn't be familiar with yet. As I said, she's the unnamed daughter in the original story, in the appendices. What do you think people might recognize in her story that resonates with other stories in The Lord of the Rings?
Well, we've met her descendants. She is the sort of first iteration that we have of, a woman of Rohan, a princess of Rohan. So she has that tenacity, she has that courage as well. So I think there's a lot of things that you could recognize in her that you would also see in Éowyn, for instance. And it's lovely to see that through line. Hundreds of years before we meet Éowyn, we have Hera.
I love the fact that she's a shield maiden, which is a term that Éowyn uses for herself in The Lord of the Rings. And then you see through that word into this is something part of the Rohirrim culture.
Absolutely, absolutely. And, I think Hera, in many ways, brings it back to the forefront of the Rohirrim culture as well.
Luke, a lot of the characters in this movie have fantastic hair. Gaia, of course. Brian, you look fabulous.
The makeup was really amazing.
Luke, how do you think Wolf stacks up hair-wise?
Well, he's animated, right? So his hair has got to be right up there at the top of the pile. It never looks anything other than exactly how it's supposed to at any given time. So, yeah.
His hair is so bouncing and behaving. He feels like he could fight with two swords and the hair could have a couple of knives or something.
It had its own, Wolf's hair had its own trailer, actually, when we were recording it.
And to the filmmakers, why these three actors for these three parts?
Fran said years ago to me, you know, somehow the right actor comes to the role at the right time. And that's what happened here. Brian had worked previously, obviously, with you guys. But, you know, he was always out there as like, could we possibly get Brian Cox? You know, it was just one of the things that, you know, you have this sort of little dream between yourselves and you sort of dare to dream it, and then you ask the question, and he came back and he said yes. And I think he connected immediately to that character. You kind of knew what you were doing straight off the bat. It was one of the easiest things we've ever had. Someone turn up and go, right, let's do this. And you did, effortlessly. Gaia was really interesting. I had in my gut. We had some phenomenal actresses read for her. We looked all over the place, and I had in my gut right from the word go, this was going to be Hera, and you just hope with the callbacks that she would, and she just nailed it. And then this boy drove me mental because he was great, but then you just, I don't know what it was. We called you back 3 times, and I never gave up on you, and then we had a chat, we talked about it, and I was just sort of, I think you had him one thing in mind, and then you came back, and there was Wolf. And I tell you girls, you're going to fall in love with this guy before you hate him.
Well, what's the relationship between Hera and Wolf? Like, what was it a good relationship?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, they were childhood friends. I mean, they've known each other since they were children. You see a little sort of nod to that in the movie. And yeah, they were the best of friends. I think they were bonded by the fact they never really had a mother figure in their lives, but they had each other, and that was what bonded them as well. So yeah, unfortunately, it doesn't end as well as it started. But
it feels like it could have, you know, ended very. If we'd chosen another path, it could have ended very differently. But we don't have much choice in that matter. It falls to our fathers, unfortunately.
No, doing animation for battle scenes must be challenging. And I've done a little bit of it. And I know one of the hardest things...
What battle scenes did you do?
I've done a little animation, But I haven't done battle scenes yet. But I have been punched many times in animations. And one of the hardest things is to act like you're fighting with just your voice. And so I would like to set you a challenge. This is just audio. Can we hear, and I'll call on you in the order of Gaia and Luke, and then you, Brian, you'll bring us home. Can I hear your best "I just got punched" sound? Ooh, okay, Gaia. Okay. Luke. Brian. So Helm can take a punch, is what you're saying.
Well, I'll tell you a story. When I was a kid, there was a guy who was challenged in the school. I was in primary school, and I was a bit of an idiot. Well, I still am a bit of an idiot. And the really cruel, you know, kids can be incredibly cruel. So these cruel kids wanted me to fight him. And I didn't want to fight him, because he was a sweet, nice lad, you know, and he had certain difficulties, and I didn't want to be there. So they made me fight him, so I didn't fight him, but what I did was I beat myself up. I grabbed myself, and I threw myself on the floor, and I punched myself, and they all left me alone. Good tip for children.
I want to see that movie.
Yeah.
All right, we have some time for some audience questions here. I believe, yes, audience questions are next. Yes? Yes. All right. Yes, young lady.
Hello. Oh, thank you. Young lady, it's been quite some time since someone's called me that. Question is, in the creation of the character Hera, what real-world influences were put together to form that character, such as, say, Ethelflaed or things like that?
Sorry, I didn't hear the last bit of it.
Real-world influences for such a character who's obviously not canon, but
yes.
such characters did exist in the real world. Blood is the one everyone thinks of.
I mean, I weirdly, and talking about anime as well, I drew a little bit on Nausicaa as well, because I think that character arc is a really, really lovely and sort of quite similar one to Hera. I was given, the most fantastic opportunity because I was really allowed to play, and I was really allowed to work out where she sat within me and where I wanted, bits of myself to come in. And it was a, trial and error process, but it was wonderful having, the walking encyclopedia of Philippa and Archie and Phoebe sitting there if I ever needed any pointers. And I drew a lot on Eowyn as well, finding that vulnerability, but also that intense courage and staying true to one's soul.
You are dead right about Aethelflaed, daughter of Alfred the Great, who, when her father was killed, her husband died, her brother was besieged, led her people. So yeah, dead on.
She's such a cool character. Everyone should look at her.
Next question, please. Thank you.
Hi. Asking this question is such a thrill. So just wondering, obviously in the original Peter Jackson movies, we got to see some of Rohirrim and their culture, but not as much as we're going to see in the film. So I was wondering what depth of learning we'll get about the culture of Rohan and the new things we're going to learn, and also some of the things that are still going to be continuities in what we're seeing.
That's an interesting question. How's your old English? You might want to study up. I think you see, the nice thing about this is I hope that it's going to feel familiar to you, but then you're going to see it in a different way. This is 200 years before the events of the live-action film, but you get to see inside the keep more and explore that through the eyes of Kenji Kamiyama. You get to see Erebus as you know Erebus, but you've never seen Erebus in flames before, and you get to see what that looks like and the rebuilding of it. The Dunharrow, there's a lot of places that will feel familiar, but yeah, I love that we get to see them through fresh eyes, through this guy who is literally a masterful genius with a camera.
I particularly enjoy seeing more of Aglarond, seeing more of the elaborate cave system behind.
Yes, good.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, next question.
Hi, thank you, everyone. Watching the footage, one of the things I noticed was the sound quality was amazing. I feel like it was on par with the Peter Jackson live actions. I heard everyone gasping when they heard the music come back. So it just felt like we were there. So for the voice actors, how do you get into character when you're in the studio? How do you perform as if you're on these hills, in these valleys, in these castles?
Brian, you've done a lot of radio work. How do you...
Yeah, I think one of the useful things is what is called imagination. You want me to elaborate on imagination? Look.
Is there an app for that?
Yeah, well, we've all been children, and one of the things as a child is the pretending. We pretend to be grown-ups when we're children, then we get up there and we realize how disappointing it is. But, I value that. I value my childhood, and I value what I did when I was a kid. And actually, quite frankly, I'm still, even though I am a certain age, I won't give what it is, but I still think of myself as 9. And I've never really grown up from that point. So when you go into a studio like this, it's vent for your imagination. You can take yourself on amazing journeys in a very small room. And sometimes during COVID, I did it in my closet, which I did for...
yes, indeed.
Yeah,
I got a tour of it, yes.
Yeah. So I was in my closet, and of course they were all able to see my horrible clothes surrounding me as I was making these noises,
That's the punch I was looking for.
Oh, no.
I hope that was punching.
No. That you asked me how Helm responds to a punch.
I apologize.
Yeah, and he responds to a punch like I said. That's it.
All right, next question.
Thank you very much, guys.
Hi, thank you, everyone. This is for Kamiyama-san. You have a long history of creating compelling female characters, the Major, Balsa among them. What experiences did you draw from them to create like a character like Hera in such a wonderful world?
一つは最初に脚本を作っていた時に名前のない娘がいるっていうね、原作のその一行がトールキンの世界の中に本当はいない理由っていうのをね、女性があの時代には活躍することができなかったであろう時代に、実はそういうキャラクターがいて、トールキンの原作にも、歌にも出てこなかったっていうナレーションがあったと思いますけど、彼女がこう語られないこうヒロインっていうのね、そこがすごく魅力的だなと思って、その部分っていうのをこう膨らましていこう、実はシールドメイデンなんだけれどもっていうね、そこをこう膨らましていくととても魅力的なキャラクターになるんじゃないかな。でおそらくヘルムが3人兄弟がいる中でね、もちろん長男に家を継がせていくわけですけれども、もし彼女が長男だったらとかね、もし女性だけど家を継ぐ資格があるとしたら、ヘルムは彼女に家系を継がしたかったんじゃないかなっていうふうに僕は想像して、このヘラっていうキャラクターを作りました。
So I think what drew his eyes like when he first was thinking about this character of Hera. I mean, in the text, I assume most of you read the text. Basically says there's a daughter, and it's unnamed. So what does that mean to be unnamed? You know, it probably doesn't have the right to be an heir to the throne. Probably she wasn't allowed to do as much as she wanted in terms of the, what kind of person she wanted to be. Maybe there might have been some limitations. So what does that feel like? But, again, you've read the text, so spoiler alert. She's the only one left. So what does that mean? And how would she react to this in this situation? What if she was the one she would have been allowed to be an heir to the throne in this world, and how would Helm would have looked at her? So, all these things, I mean, so again, it's, I hate to say imagination. So he started imagining about what it would have been like, and how someone like Helm would have looked at her, because there's something about her not dying, she survives, but there's no trace of her after that. So, all of that combined, and he started thinking about how to assign personality, or what kind of personality she might have, and what kind of skills that she might have. So that's how that was the process that he went through trying to create this character. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone.
I know there are a couple other people in line here. As you can see, the panel was really hot ticket. There were some really big fans who weren't able to get in here today, and one of them has sent in a question of their own. So let's just take a moment here to check out their question.
Hi, my name is Peter from New Zealand, and I've got a question for the panel. Do you think that you're ever going to make a movie about my all-time favourite character, the Lake Town Spy? A fantastic character. And if you do make the movie The Lake Town Spy, do you think you'll cast a better actor to play him? But, seriously though, do have a question, and this one is for Stephen. Because Stephen always gets me. I've never managed to stump him yet on any Tolkien question. So here I go. This is my attempt. Let's see what happens. So Stephen, in Rohan, the Rohirrim have a breed of horse that ultimately the mighty Shadowfax was descended from. What is the name of the breed of Rohan horse that Shadowfax comes from?
The Mieras! This is child's play! This is a threat for a child, Peter. You come into my house?
Okay, if you said near us, then you've got me again. And it's very depressing. But if you didn't, if you got the answer wrong, then you're probably not Stephen Colbert. This is probably not Stephen Colbert. Can we have a security escort this guy off the stage, please? Thank you. It's the wrong guy. He's an imposter.
Thank you, Peter. I didn't know what the question was. That was terrifying. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm afraid we don't have time for any more questions. We have a limited amount today. Thank you. Please come for the next film that they produce. Okay. Okay. Now we have a little investigation of the film's visual style. We're about to get a look at some very special artwork revealed today for the very first time.